Once upon a time in a quaint little school there was a mischievous student named Tommy. Tommy was notorious for pulling pranks on his teachers, especially his strict math teacher, Mrs. Smith. One day, Mrs. Smith assigned the class a particularly difficult math problem. As the students diligently worked on their assignments, Tommy decided to spice things up. He snuck up to the chalkboard and, with a mischievous grin, erased the problem and replaced it with a silly doodle of Mrs. Smith wearing a clown nose. When Mrs. Smith turned around to check on the progress of the class, she couldn't believe her eyes. The entire class erupted into laughter, and poor Mrs. Smith was left blushing furiously. But Mrs. Smith was not one to be outdone. With a twinkle in her eye, she calmly walked over to Tommy's desk and whispered something in his ear. Tommy's eyes widened in surprise, and he quickly turned back to his desk, trying to hide his laughter. The next day, during recess, Tommy found himself at the receiving end of his own prank. As he reached into his bag for his lunch, he discovered that Mrs. Smith had replaced his sandwich with a squishy toy clown nose. From that day on, Tommy learned his lesson.